Well, nothing really means anything until we decide we actually give it a label, Brad. So that's the thing. The way we filter information and the way that we actually view things is based obviously on our past life experiences, but it's also based on our environment. And for example, when we think about something like stress and anxiety and worry and nervousness and panic, they generally all carry the same symptomology in our body. So the label that we give it or we choose to give it will determine how it actually affects our neurology. So our unconscious mind can't tell the difference between what's real and what's fantasy. So when we focus on what we want and we picture achieving success, we imagine, what does it feel like? What does it look like? And what does it sound like? And our central nervous system will actually take notice and it actually supports it. So creating pictures creates a memory. And this determines our focus, which determines our state in turn. So if we get into the habit of imagining things going well and actually focusing on what it is that we want, it's going to make a really big difference and a massive amount of impact to our psychology. Therefore, our physiology will change and our perception will change as well. And also in leadership, we've got to be mindful of the fact that this will change our language and the way that we're communicating with our teams. So repeating positive thoughts helps rewire the brain. It creates new neural pathways that reinforce positive thought patterns and therefore behavior. And the more you say something and the more your brain says something, the more your brain is going to start to believe it. Yeah. So what we're doing is we're shifting our mindset and we're going from self-doubt to self-confidence. And once again, it's going to encourage the brain to focus on success for the day, and it will reinforce, empowering thoughts. And of course, as leaders, empowering thoughts and language within your team, it's going to foster growth, a growth mindset, and it's going to improve performance. And it's also going to affect the team's motivation to take on more challenges, driving more collaborative, success-driven environment.
So change your words, change your brain. Yeah. So what a concept. So we talk to ourselves all day long. I know some people more than others, included. How much does these little phrases we use actually shape how we think and feel over time? What do you think about that, Chantel?
I just thinking and laughing about, all the conversations, I remember people used to say, you can talk to yourself all day long. It's when you answer yourself that you have to worry. But I think, many of us have so much in all seriousness, many of us have so much internal dialogue, and whether we're conscious of it or not, we're all talking to ourselves all of the time. And we're actually conducting instructions, if you like, between conscious brain and subconscious brain. And so the words that we use will actually shape how we think and how we act, because words actually carry a lot of energy behind them. I don't know if you've ever been in one of those situations where someone uses a particular word and maybe that word hits you and you had an exceptional amount of emotion as a result of that word being chosen as opposed to some other word. And so, believe it or not, the words that we use actually will impact not only how we feel, but also when we use them with other people, it will change the way that they react to us as well. So over time, as we condition ourselves through language, that's how we gauge our responses, both with ourselves and others. What often will happen is if we've got little kinks in the system, or perhaps maybe some negativity in the words that we're choosing or the way in which we're talking to ourselves, then what happens is we start to create, this barrier or this reinforcement to, those things being true and correct. And whether we're just repeating them to ourselves in a jovial way, or whether we're, really beating on ourselves with lots of negative emotions while we tell ourselves those things, the subconscious mind doesn't generally distinguish whether or not we meant it, or whether it was a joke, or whether it's true, or any of those things. So it just accepts uncritically all of those words, and then it chooses to make them a reality. And so when you think about that, if you've got really empowering patterns, like I know that there are people that sometimes walk around and they have a belief that they're really confident and that they're outspoken and that they can communicate well. And so because they believe those things and they tell themselves that, then generally their actions match that conversation that they're having with themselves. By the same contrast, I've also met people and have been a person in the past where I had very unwarranted and negative talk tracks about myself, my identity, my capability. And of course, those things became part of the reinforcement of that pattern for a long time. And then the self-fulfilling prophecies from those actions and those behaviors. And so when you start to actually get conscious of the lens that you put on yourself and you catch yourself using that negative dialogue with yourself, what you can do is you can reinforce language that's much more empowering. And, you know, my mum Teresa used to have a thing where she'd say, I don't like saying just act as if or fake it till you make it, especially if I'm not there yet. And so she used to have a thing that she would talk about when she was in the process of obtaining skills. And so maybe try it today. It's something that perhaps maybe you don't think you're good at yet. And it doesn't feel right to do an affirmation to say, oh, I'm so confident, if you don't really believe you are.